What's up, everybody? We are back for another review of the second session. Fedor Holtz won the first session. Fedor Holtz won the second session. So we're gonna take a look at some of the bigger pots, and we're gonna go a little more in depth into one of the hands. I thought it was quite interesting. So without further ado, let's just let it roll here. Okay, so right here we've got a pretty standard 3-bet with Jack 9 of clubs, and the 4-bet with kings is very small. The 4-bet is only 25 big blinds or so, which is pretty small, which allows hands like Jack 9 suited to get themselves into trouble. Against a raise size of maybe 27 or 28 big blinds, Jack 9 suited, not so good because you're dominated by a whole bunch of hands. You get cooler in a lot of spots. So for a min raise, Fedor decides to take the flop, and it's a good one. You got the top 2 pair against 2 kings. Now, when you have kings here, you're happy to have an overpair, obviously, but this is a really bad board for you. You don't have a spade in your hand. Your opponent, their calling range to a 4-bet could really smash this. Like, they've got pocket 9s, pocket 8s, 10s, pocket jacks even. Could still have the aces, too, because the aces don't always 5-bet jam. So he's going to go ahead, make a small bet on this flop. Old theory was like, oh, this flop, you got to protect your hand, and bet big. But, GTO, if you will, likes a small bet here, and Fedor is just going to get it in now. At least, that's his idea here, which is going to happen. And the kings at that point are like, all right, what's the point of waiting for a card to come off? Let's go. Victor needs a king, 8, or a deuce. On the river, nothing. So a nice pot there for Fedor with a, slightly loosey. The 3-bet's normal. Calling the 4-bet's close, but the raise size was small. All right, here we go. We've got a 3-bet here from ace-queen, standard. 7's flat, standard, okay? And this flop ace-queen is going to bet, most of the time. And for 7s, it's just a call. You don't typically raise on these flops very often, period. Especially to this, when you're really, really deep, you can do it a little bit more. But it's a bet and a call. Now the ace-queen still has to feel pretty good about its hand. It doesn't beat a 6. It doesn't beat a jack. It doesn't beat a pocket pair. For half pot, it beats enough. Doesn't have a spade in its hand. Fedor could be betting a flush draw or something like that. And now in the river, ace-queen has nothing to do with check. So this is where I think Fedor really just pushes the envelope with a very thin jam. He's going to have some value and some bluffs when he does this, right? Okay, so he bet 17, but as you can see, Victor had 14, so a little over pot. So with a hand like 7s, you figure, again, you have to ask yourself the question, like, what are you targeting? You're targeting a call with ace high, which he gets, or a 6, trying to represent busted spades. Works out really well for Fedor there. All right, here's a hand where it goes raise, 3-bet, and Victor calls with queen 4 suited. You play heads up, you got to play some pots, especially in position. Now, against a very small bet, you look at queen 4 and you think, well, he's got nothing, so fold, right? No, not against that small size, because look at, you got to fight for these pots sometimes, right? Jack 6-3, he's got the 3-card straight, the 3-card flush, he's got a queen if that's any good, and he's got position, right? So he could hit nothing and still kind of like win this pot in a lot of different ways. So against a small bet, it's fine to peel here with the backdoor draws. And now he hits his best card, which is a queen. And for Fedor, this is a card he's probably going to have to shut down on and check. He's behind a jack, which is a decent part of Victor's range. Queen really isn't. Like, Fedor's really not all that worried about a queen specifically. He's worried about the jack more so, I would say. Right? I guess there are a decent amount of like queen 10 suiteds or queen 4 suiteds and stuff that could peel. But now Victor hits his card and he's going to bet 2/3 pot in a really, really tough spot for Fedor. Because he knows Victor's capable of peeling really, really light. He could have 4-7 suited here. He could have picked up an ace-10 gut shot or, 8-10 suited with backdoors and all that kind of stuff. And on the river, the 4-5 gets there, which could be a thing, Fedor for sure checks. He's never betting this card. And the question now for Victor is, with 16 in the pot, you're going to value bet. You can't dog this. You don't check this. You feel like you're going to have the best hand most of the time. The question is, do you go for a small probing bet, half pot bet, or just say all-you-can-eat jam? And he does go for the all-you-can-eat jam, which I don't know if that works as well on this board, the way that it played, because he doesn't have as many bluffs as you'd think when he calls his flop, bets turn, and bets river. So I don't know. I think maybe in this spot, a smaller size might have been better. Now for Fedor, he's looking at 2 8s. He doesn't block any of the missed draws. He doesn't block the 9-10s, the king 10s, he doesn't block any hearts. So it's a decent candidate to call. The problem is he's saying, you know, well, Victor's the kind of guy that can call, that would bet this with a jack, right? If he has king jack or ace jack. Here we go with jack 8 suited, a raise, a 3-bet from 7-6 suited. Totally standard here. Always 3-betting these hands and always calling with jack 8 of diamonds. Huge flop for the jack 8 of diamonds. Old school players would see this flop and go, oh, you got to protect your hand. Get it in there with a good draw. No, this hand's fine to just flat with. Fedor is going to go ahead and bet his 7s for small. As you can see, pretty much every 3-bet C-bet has been right around quarter pot. And for Victor, I like just flat. You know, what do you could try to get in against kings and be a small favorite, but just take, you need to protect your calling range too, right? And have some of these hands in there. So a decent card for Victor. Now he's got the backdoor straight draw. Fedor can't like that card. Now there's 2 overcards, and that 9 is relevant because Victor would peel with 9, 10, 8, 9. Also 8, a 9. It's just like ace 9 of spades, all kinds of stuff. So Victor likes to check that back, which is interesting. You know, trap, a little bit trappy. And now that queen on the river, for Fedor, that's really just a terrible card, right? When you think of the hands that peel the flop, maybe he peels with 5-6 suited, 6-8 suited, something like that. But you have a 6, so you block that. That's not necessarily a good thing. And there's king 10 suited, there's 8-10s, there's just a queen, like king queen, queen 10. Whole bunch of hands that Victor can have here that for value. And the fact that he didn't bet the turn, bets this river, and now he's betting size. I don't think this is a good hand to call if you're Fedor. Like, you got to pick like certain hands to call with. I don't know if 6-7 here is a good one because, like I said, you block 6-8, you block 5-6. Although you could make it a case that those hands would bet the turn a decent amount, so maybe that's not relevant. But Fedor, after a long tank, elects to go ahead and look him up. Yeah, again, I don't know. This one's probably pretty close, which is why he took a really long time. Probably, maybe a slightly losing call in the long run. All right, here we go. We got a raise and a 3-bet from ace-jack. 7-4 suited can call this deep. Now, ace-jack has a 3-card flush. He's got initiative. Fedor's flopped a pair, so he's got queens and 7s here. And the standard, what we've been seeing, most of the time the 3-better is leading the flop for quarter. This is a fine flop to do that. He's got the right kind of hand to do that. Fedor has just an obvious call. Now Victor has a card that he can barrel because he has the ace of hearts. He can go ahead and bet once more. For Fedor, he's just going to have to call. It's 1/3 pot. He's really handcuffed. I mean, you could theoretically raise, but that's goofy. Like, why? What are you doing that for? Like, what are you representing, right? So this is just a call for Fedor, and then a hope a heart doesn't come. And now the king on the river. Now that card is good for Victor because Victor 3-bet. You know, he could have king jack with a heart, ace king with a heart. Those are all hands that he might barrel with. Hands that are slightly less likely for Fedor to have. So a good bet here, I think, from Victor with ace jack, turning his hand into a bluff. Figuring that when Fedor calls flop and turn, that ace high is no good. Because again, notice ace high has showdown value. He's got queens with ace king jack. Okay, and that could be relevant if Fedor had something like ace 10 with the 10 of hearts, with the 10 of hearts or something like that. So he decides to bluff this one, and it worked. Okay, so we got the jack 4 offsuit. That's a borderline open, jack 4. Depending on what sort of range construction you're using, jack 4 is either an open or sometimes it's like a maybe open most of the time or whatever. I open the jack 4. I usually fold the jack 3 and the jack deuce. It's kind of how I split. So I think it's fine. They're pretty deep too. And Fedor defends with 7-8. 100% of the time he's going to call or raise. So raise probably, I don't know, 10, 15%, depending on how you play, right? Depending how you're constructing your ranges and your 3-bets. So now, Fedor checks, of course, middle pair. You don't lead. It's not really a thing. I mean, Phil Hellmuth's going to do that against me, but it's not really a thing. Okay, so now Victor bets the flop, which is a fine C-bet to do. He's got absolutely nothing, pretty close to the bottom of his range. And Fedor has just a smooth, simple check call. That's like literally, there's some spots where there's only one really correct play. That's it with 7-8. Folding's dumb, terrible, and check raising that hand is not correct. I mean, I don't know, maybe it does it 1% of the time, but this is not a check raising flop, not a hand you check raise with. A hand you check raise with might be a 3, but not typically a 7. Okay. A 3 like a king 3 or an ace 3 or something like that. So now this is an interesting board. It's a disconnected board with a backdoor flush draw. Victor has the jack of hearts, and that is relevant. Okay, why? What does it matter? Well, because if the river's a heart, he has a key blocker that blocks a lot of flushes that Fedor could have. Okay, which is important when you're putting pedal to the metal. And as you can see, Victor does put pedal to the metal with a 1.5 size bet. Why does he do that? It's because of the board texture. Okay, this is one of the things I learned too. A disconnected board like this, there's no straights, there's no flushes. So, you know, the value combos are sets and 2 pairs. Who has more of those? The button. The button has all the pocket queens, pocket 8s, pocket 7s, pocket 3s. The big blind has some pocket 3s, doesn't really have 7s, queens, or 8s. Can have queen 7 or queen 8 for sure, queen 3, those types of 2 pair hands. But Victor has range advantage for sure in the position, so he's going to go ahead and bet big. And for Fedor with 2 pair, this is where people go, oh, I got to protect my hand. No, no, no. When someone overbets these kind of turns, the caller doesn't really have a check raising range at all. Like, I know it sounds nuts, but he really doesn't have one. Ask the solver. It just says nope. It's a pure call with 8s and 7s. And I think Fedor knows that. And he's going to make the call. Now, that's a card for Victor that brings the backdoor straight. And this is something that Doug does a lot and did a lot against me. Okay? Now, this is interesting. So, when that 10 comes, right? Who has Jack 9 more? Only one person has Jack 9. There was a big bet on the flop from Victor, right? So he can have all the Jack 9s in the world. Fedor can't. So in these kind of situations, one of the things that Doug likes to do is he likes to apply maximum pressure. So with 7K in the pot, these are the kind of runouts where he would bet it all. He would bet 4x pot and really put you to the test, right? Because against 4x pot, can you really call with 7s and 8s? I mean, you don't beat, and the thing is, Doug is also doing this with some of his queens up too. So his value is not limited to Jack 9. So if you're sitting there with 7-8, my God, you can't beat the Jack 9. You can't beat the better 2 pair. You can't beat the sets. You just got to hope he's got some squadouche type hand like Jack 4. Right? I mean, that's one of the plays that Doug really puts people in tough spots with, because you have to decide, are you going to start calling these overbets, or are you going to, continue to let him have it? So interesting here. I don't like this play at all from Victor. I really didn't like that sizing at all. Betting 5 into 7. Here's the problem with it. As I said, when Fedor calls a big bet on the flop, right? He's going to have a queen. He's going to have a 7. He's not folding a queen to that size on the river, right? If he just has a 7, he's probably folding the turn, right? So what are you targeting to get to fold here? You're targeting hands that you probably beat already, right? Like 5-6 suited and 4-6 suited. He doesn't have, whatever, Jack 7 of hearts, because you have the Jack of hearts. So once Fedor calls this overbet on the turn, I don't like Victor's river sizing. Yeah, I just don't think it makes sense to bet that size. I think that's a spot where, and I'd be interested to hear what Mr. Doug Polk has to say about this, but I bet you he would agree with me that this is a spot where if you are going to pull the trigger and apply maximum pressure, a better bet than what he bet would have been 35,000. And now you really put Fedor into the tank. Or just give up. But to bet 5,000, that seemed like kind of a donation into Fedor's stack. Very interesting hands. I hope you guys enjoyed the rundown. I've learned a lot through this process. Obviously, it cost me a pretty penny for lessons, about 1.2 million, but I promise you I've gotten a lot better. I'm able to watch these hands with a different eye now, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the breakdown and learned a little something yourself. 2 great players doing a lot of funky stuff sometimes that you wonder, like the Queen 6 bluff. Wow, that's outside the box. That's the one we spent the most time on because I found it the most interesting that he chose to go with the small size. And again, hats off to these guys for stepping into the ring. Good luck to both going forward.